Hello everybody, and welcome to another bonus stream, Battleground Games Live. Hi, I'm Andrew, and I'm going to be painting some more, doing some more work painting my D&D minis on stream. We have a competition going on right now at all three Battleground locations. It's a painting and mini competition, assembling and painting minis. I have not done much assembly. The only assembly I was doing was building my base, which is right now just a few cutout pieces of cardboard, which, I have to do something with that. I'm trying to figure out what's the fastest way to make something that looks cool for the competition. But in the meantime, I hope to be able to finish working on the minis themselves today. If you've joined me on the last couple of streams, on Monday, I modified my minis a little bit. I took them off of their bases so that they wouldn't have bases, mostly because I wanted something cleaner looking than just minis with bases on them. And so I cropped off their bases and I added these little, I don't know if you can see them there. Yeah, you can see them sort of. I put pins in their feet, and that is what I'm doing to keep them standing on the base, is pop those pins into it, and it's working relatively well. It's the first time I've ever actually worked with pinning, and it's not perfect, but it's doing the trick for the most part. The one exception is one of my kobolds. Which one is it? Not that one. This one here. The pin punched through further than I wanted it to on this guy, and I doubt you can see it there, but it actually punches through his thigh right out into his spear there. Not a huge fan of the sculpt on this kobold to start with, and that's just a little more frustrating. If I pull that out a bit, there we are. Pull it back, I can maybe make it work. What I'm going to do is put a little glob of glue on the end of the pin by his foot and see if that will keep it from punching into his leg anymore. And then paint will cover the hole where that went through. So just a little touch of glue here to keep the pin from going any further. There we go. See if that will do the trick. Oh, gracious. All right, we'll let him dry. In the meantime, I've got these guys to work on. Worst comes to worst, I could start over. I've got another copy of that same kobold because the pack I bought was a 6-pack. It had 3 of each kobold, so that's okay. But it's taken me hours and hours and hours to get to the point where I'm at right now. So here's the state of things. This is the treasure chest that I constructed I did no construction, I just did painting on this. It is essentially done. So you can see I made this gem into a sapphire, sort of. There's the lamp that's on the treasure hoard. There's the sword that's sticking out of the treasure hoard. There's this thing sculpted in on the back of the treasure chest. I decided that's just a pewter plate, so I painted it just silver. And there's the chest itself. That is pretty much done. That is exactly where I want it to be. So I'm gonna leave that be and move on to the next things. And the next things are the kobolds and the bard. Darn it, I got glue on this guy's paint and it's dissolving the paint, and that's awful. That's a thing that happened. Oh well. Meant to do just a touch of glue and I got glue all over the place. Anyhow, let's look at the kobolds. So I spent about 4 hours on Wednesday afternoon doing some painting and added a whole bunch of paint to these figures. If you watched me on Tuesday afternoon, I started painting these. I based them on Monday, or primed them on Monday, and then I started basing them on Tuesday. And over the course of Wednesday, I was able to get all the paint onto the figures that I wanted to get onto them as a base coat. That base coat, obviously you can see there's brown and there's some red and some silver and, you know, a bunch of different colors. When you're done with that base coat, they end up looking very flat, very washed out, very amorphous. So yesterday afternoon, I was able to do a wash on them. And what the wash is, it's a very thin paint. So you put the wash on them and it sort of goes into the cracks and crevices in the model, and it gives them some contrast. It goes into the lines and really makes them pop. So I don't know if you can see on this guy here. I might be able to zoom in a little bit and I don't know if you can see there. But in his skirt, you can see that there are some very clearly defined lines. Does that show up on the camera? Sort of. Right in his kilt. So that's the result of the wash. The wash also defines the corners and edges for some of the painted areas there. The next mission that I have is the super fine little details that I want to do on these characters, which will really bring them to life. And this is both my favorite part of doing the miniature painting and the most nerve-wracking. It's my favorite part because it's the bit where the smallest bits of paint applied to the model have the biggest impact. You put these little details in there and catch the bits of the sculpt that you're trying to highlight, and it's astonishing how quickly that results in a better look. On the other hand, this is where I have the biggest chance to actually mess up. Oh, hang on a second. Got rid of that static for you. So yeah, this is where the chance of a small glitch resulting in something awful is the highest. I'm nervous, but I'm also really anticipating this bit. So I've got about an hour to do some painting, and I figure that's enough time to get a little bit of detail onto these guys. I'm going to start with my brass scorpion, and I'm going to grab, I've got two brushes I'm using today. I'm going to use this, which is the Warhammer Psycho, which is the finest brush I own. It's just like a couple hairs at its end. And I'm going to use my primary brush. Yeah, I'm going to use this brush here, which is supposed to be, it says medium glaze, but I use it for almost everything that I do. It's a good all-around brush, I have found. I think I'm mostly going to be using the Psycho today. Take my glasses off because I can't see the figures with my glasses on. And I'm going to start with some copper-colored pips on the skirts for these kobolds. There we go. So these kobolds have these skirts that look like they are a trio of leather strips, or at least that's how I interpret it. And each strip has a little bump on it, which I think would make an excellent sort of rivet, or so I'm just going to grab a tiny bit of copper, get in here, and this guy has hair. There we go. This is why I don't paint at home, is I have cats, or I have a cat, and cat hair would get in everything. There we go. This is the copper is not enough of a contrast with the skirt. So I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to do this in silver on those. I thought copper on red would look cool, but the contrast isn't there. So my slowly growing collection of paints. There we go. Always shake your paints up. I think I've talked about this before. What I'm using for a palette is the back of a label. We use these 4" by 6" labels when we are mailing stuff out for the Battleground online store. And those labels work excellently well as paint palettes, as my wife discovered. Okay. My Psycho brush has one bristle that is longer than all the others, and I'm finding this very annoying, because the one bristle doesn't hold any paint but impacts the model before everything else. I wonder if I dare to trim my brush. Okay. So I got those. Those little rivets done. And it's just, I love how much of a difference a tiny, tiny detail like that can make. Next, I am going to use the copper. On the shoulder pad of this kobold, he's got what I've interpreted as a piece of metal strapped to his shoulder, and it also has a couple of rivets. And I know from experience that copper on silver looks really good. So I'm going to just bloop, tiny bit of paint on the brush. Just barely any at all. go. There. And there. See if I can get that on camera. I think these details are just fine enough that they might not show up on camera. So I've just, on that metal bit there on the edge of his shoulder, I added a tiny little detail of copper, which just makes it pop a little bit. And there's the silver bits on his leather skirt. He's got a belt buckle, so I'm going to try and get in there and give that belt buckle some definition. It's going to be tricky, but I think I can do it. I'll do that in copper as well. And you try and use the edge of the brush, paint along the edge of the belt buckle here. That worked pretty well. There, he's got a belt buckle now. Next up, I'm going to work on his face. And this is obviously the focal point of the model. You get some nice detail in on the rest of the model, but the face is where people automatically look. It's where your eye is drawn to. So I want to put lots of little details on the face, give him some character. So I've got 3 kobolds. I've got sword guy here. I've got this fellow with the shield. And I have this guy that I just ruined with too much glue. Is he dry yet? Pretty dry. With a spear. And I feel like I want to differentiate them from each other, give them some personality. So I'm going to give 2 of them black bristles. They're the younger ones, and then I'm going to give one of them white bristles and make him an older, more experienced kobold who's seen some stuff. And I think white bristles is going to be the guy I just ruined. He's going to need some work on his back where that glue mussed him up. And then these guys are going to be black bristles. I want to do their toes. Give their claws a little definition. The wash did some of it for me, which is nice. I'm going to grab a dark black. That's my shading. I'm using a primer basically for the fine detail black that I'm going to use to try and bring out some of the lines on these guys. Okay, I'm going to start with this guy's toes. He's got, actually in the sculpt, he's got claws on the ends of his toes. And I'm gonna, this is good practice, work on the toes, which are going to be down in the base and hardly visible. But it gives me an idea of what I can do. Just going to boop, paint them black. I think I do need to trim this errant hair. Oh, it's getting better on my Psycho brush. Those are his toesies. Let's see. And he's got a pair of little tusks, which I'll do in white. I'm going to boop his snoot. Maybe I should make it brown, like a darker brown, and not black. I am going to get in on his eyes. So, just under the eye ridge here, he's got, I'm going to paint them two-toned. First a little black. And then I'm going to give him green irises. And he's got sort of a ruff, like a mohawk, across the top of his head. I'm going to paint that brown. So I want white for the tusks, brown for the ruff and the nose, and he's got a couple of horns that I'm going to highlight as well. And then green irises for the eyes to make them pop. So let's start with the brown for the horns and the ruff on the top of his head. She's got a horn here. Now that brown's too subtle. I do have to go black for the horns. Okay. Definitely learning about getting that detailing done. What works and what doesn't. perfectly fine detail, which I don't know if anybody would notice. Alright, I need to do something about this brush. Probably going to make things worse, but it has to be done. Oh darn. I either need a new brush or I need to edit this one, because that extra hair that sticks out there is really bothering me. I think I got it. I think I'm okay. I think that fixed it. Okay. I'm gonna... Ooh, too much paint. Gonna dry brush his ridge just across the top here. Bring out some detail there. Nice. Gonna boop his snoot so that he has just a teeny cute little snoot on him. There we go. And I'm going to grab some white and give him some tusks. Oh, gracious. Challenge here is getting just enough paint and not too much on the end of the brush, and also making sure your brush is dry before you dip it, because otherwise you end up with wet paint and that goes everywhere. I like this guy's sculpt because the tusks are clearly delineated and it's easier for me to hit them like that. There we go. Oh, too much. I can rescue this quickly just by wicking away the extra paint. That worked pretty well. Let him dry off before I try that side again.
Call from Marcio M.A.
Getting close on this guy.
Call from Marcio M.A.
Okay. I'm gonna just one more touch here to get the tusk on his other side. There. And there. Kind of gets it. The sculpt isn't as clear on this side, so I'm having to sort of make it up. But looks okay. Not ideal. Looks like tusks on one side and war paint on the other, but that's what you do. Alright, let's try and give him eyeballs. I've got this delicious Dayglow green that I'm using on one of my Rune Wars figures. I think this will make for some interesting eyes. Finest little, I can just apply a tiny bit of paint right there. Oh man, this paint is kind of dry. I think I might need to thin it a little. No, this isn't working. All right, well, come back to that. This paint is congealed, which is sad. I want to do one more detail on him. And this is going to be a far subtler detail, so I don't know if it's even worth trying, but I'm going to do it anyways. I'm going to try and do a dry brushing stripe on his tail. Doesn't really come across. That was worth a try. Anyways, aside from the eyeballs, which I can't get to work because the paint is dried, here is my first completed kobold. And I'm going to say that is pretty much done. Spent probably 20 minutes doing the finer detail on him. But now that I've done it on one figure, I have an idea of what I'm trying to do, so I can do it on other figures. Let's see if I can get him in focus for you. There we go. So you can see I added those little tusks there. I added his belt buckle and these little pips down here, and I don't know if you can see them on screen, but he's got little pips on his shoulder here. All these fine details are what really makes a model come to life. And like I said at the beginning of this stream, this is my favorite part, is doing these little itty bitty details that pop on the model, make it go from just being sort of generic to being alive. And now, hopefully I can go a little bit faster, because I know what my plan is on this guy. I hear that static coming back. Give me a second here. I'm back. If anybody is watching, please do hop in the chat. I have the chat window open so that I can see what's going on. I want to give myself at least a half hour to work on the bard, who is the hero figure in this diorama. So I need to step it up, go a teeny bit faster on these guys. This kobold with the shield gives me an opportunity to show you guys a little bit more clearly what I'm doing, adding detail here, because this shield is going to have some really good contrast between the copper and the silver. So this is what I'm talking about with the contrast and the detail work. You can see on that shield that just a fine detail like that instantly pops and looks awesome. I'll continue working on him. The black. And like you can hear the workshop next door to me where they're doing construction on window frames. All kinds of art going on here. It's too wet, too wet. These little toesies. Do his horns. Find myself holding my breath while I'm applying the paint. I'm working on such a tiny scale here. And it's got a rough just like the other one. Give his little mohawk some definition here. Boop his snoot. Adorable. I'm gonna make some lines for his eyes. And then I need to do his tusks. Okay. So that was a lot faster, now that I know what I'm doing. There's Tusk Boy. And there's Shield Boy. Oh man. Okay. Now, this guy. This is the guy I just ruined with glue at the start of this podcast. Or at the start of this stream. So. No going back. Only forward. He's just gonna, well, I don't know. I think maybe I need to redo some of the paint on him. Which means red, some fur brown, I may have to do a fresh wash on him. His entire backside is ruined. This is, when I say I got too much glue on him, I got way too much glue on him. Like I was looking at the front of him while I was doing that glue, and it just dripped right down his back. That's pretty disastrous. So I'm gonna go in and fix it. If I didn't have a deadline, I wouldn't be so concerned. But the fact that this guy has to be done and dusted by Sunday, and I'd like to dedicate tomorrow and Sunday to just working on the base that they're going to be standing on. So, yeah, this is just the way it's going to be. That glue is going to go right into the gaps in the model too. So it's going to get rid of some of the sculpt. What can you do? Live and learn. I've got 40 minutes before I have to stop the stream and open the store. most of the areas that the glue ruined on his face are areas I'm going to paint over anyways. So I'm going to leave that as is. It'll look a little glossier than he ought to, but that's okay. Alright, well, I did some touch-up work. While he dries, I'm going to move on to the most nerve-wracking part of this entire process. Alright, I put it off as long as I possibly can. I have to do the bard. So, here she is in her current state. Her face is a washed out blob. There is a significant amount of pooling right at the front of her face where the model is not terribly well defined. I just have to leave it. I've tried touching it up a couple of times and it doesn't help. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to give her outfit some details. I don't know if you can see it here, but she has on her cuffs and at the top of her shoulder here, there are some little details there, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to touch those with, I think, silver. I hope silver will pop against the white. It might not be as good a contrast as I'd like, but that's my plan at least. And I'm also going to line her vest with silver at the top and bottom, which will clean up this edge a little bit. Because the contrast between her vest and her midriff, that edge is a little bit messy, and I want to touch it up a bit, make sure that it's not too apparent. These are, by and large, almost microscopic details. Like, I know they barely show up on camera, if at all. But I really do feel like these kinds of tiny details, these little bits of fine work, in person, they may be slightly subconscious, but I think your brain sees them even if you're not seeing them consciously, and I think they sell the figure. Your brain interprets it as, oh, this is real. Trying to do a little lining here as finely and subtly as I can. Color it a little outside the lines. This is basically coloring books for adults, right? I think I'll do the same for her trousers. There we go. Okay. So cuffs. It's got what looks like ribbons or something here. And I'm just going to do them in silver. These are the little bits that you notice, these fine, fine details on the sculpt that you discover while you're painting it, and you're like, oh, I have to do something with that, and you sort of make a note to come back to it. Like, I don't even know what this is supposed to be. Like I said, it could be ribbons, it could be fur lining. A lot of this comes down to artist interpretation. You don't know what it's necessarily supposed to be when you're looking at the sculpt, so you have to do what makes the most sense for you. Okay, she has a belt buckle, so I'm going to do that. I was trying to decide if she has buckles on the bands that hold her dagger to her hip. She's got these bands, and those came out very, very clearly in the painting. And they have sort of where the seam is, the mold line that goes down the front of her leg there. There is something that could be interpreted as a buckle. You can clearly see. I think I'm going to try and do something there. So I'm going to do a belt buckle for her. I'm going to do buckles on her leg bands, and I'm going to there we go. She's got a pouch, and it's got what looks like a hook or something on it. Just going to touch that with copper to make it pop. Anything you can do to take these tiny details and make them relevant, I think helps sell the model. Okay, so that's all the copper I'm doing for her. Way back on Monday, when I was looking at this model after taking it out of the wrapper, you may recall I said she has claws for fingers. Her fingers are very sharp, very pointy. And I decided that what I was going to do is I'm going to give her nails. Hopefully this doesn't look like her fingers are dipped in blood. I'm going to give her shiny fingernail polish. Just going to the end of each of these claws here. At this point, I'm just trying to do subtle suggestions that the viewer's brain interprets, because you're familiar with what fingers look like. Maybe if you see these on the ends of the fingers, you'll be like, oh, sure, I know what that is. Too much. Just a blip too much there. I need to edit that back a bit. No, that's fine. Everything's fine. I hear that static, guys. I'll get that in a second. There. God, she looks like she's got jowls. That's better. Okay. We take care of this static. Okay. I'm going to give her eyebrows. This is daring. Actually, let's give her lips first. Okay, I can do this without messing it up, hopefully. She's puckering. So I'm just gonna... I don't know. Kind of worked. Okay. Okay. That's passable. Her eyes, I'm going to cheat. I fully admit I'm going to cheat on her eyes. I'm going to paint them as if they are closed. So I'm going to paint her, paint a line at the bottom of her eyes to indicate that they are closed and that she's playing her flute with her eyes closed. I should start on the inside and move out. think that worked. Kinda. I'm not super happy with it. She's looking a little more human, at least. Give her some eyelashes, kinda. Yeah, I think that worked. All right, let's give her eyebrows. Even the Psycho brush is too broad for what I'm trying to do here. Such fine detail. God. I don't know. It's gonna have to do. And I had a notion. I don't know if I can do this. Oh man, the static is coming back. I don't know what causes this static. It really upsets me. Oh. All right. So this is the final thing I'm going to do to muck up her face. I'm going to get some red on my brush, take it off, and try and dry brush just the subtlest. I want to rose up her cheeks. Don't want her to look like a clown. That actually worked. Wow, I can't believe that worked. All right, well, that's probably the best this is gonna get. Like, if I do any more, it's just gonna get worse. She's got a face now. I'm not super happy with it, but it's pretty much what I was hoping to accomplish. The only other thing that I want to do with her is something with her hair. While I think about her hair, I'm going to try and work on the last kobold, the one who I ruined with the glue at the beginning of this stream. I've got about 15 minutes. That guy looks good. That guy looks good. Okay. So, just do the same quick detailing that I did on the other two kobolds on this guy. So, get some copper. Actually, I used silver, didn't I, on the other two to contrast on the red. So I'm gonna, oop, silver. Hey Malcolm, welcome to the chat. Obviously it's not a busy day in Abington yet because we don't open until noon, and that's in 15 minutes. It may well be a busy day. I don't know. I anticipated actually being fairly busy today, mostly because we have a bunch of Warhammer 40k stuff coming in that I have to receive and people have been waiting for, including things like new codexes and models that have been out of stock for a little while. So that's going to be a lot of stuff to take care of. But hopefully I can finish the painting that I'm doing now before that. I should mention that bard, her there, that's on the document camera, that is the first human figure I have painted. Because I have primarily been painting my Rune Wars skeletons. So, although I'm not super happy with the face she ended up with, it is what it is. And, you know, for a first attempt, I feel I learned some things. That's what all of this is about. So, in the chat, Malcolm asks a little, what is Friday like at Battleground? Is it like every other day? Is it busier? Fridays, at least at the Abington location, are usually fairly quiet until about 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock is when the junior planeswalkers arrive, which is the magic for the 15 and under crowd, Magic the Gathering. So that's when it starts to get hopping in the store. I would not be surprised to see some people playing either 40k or Malifaux before then. There's almost always a game going on in the store when we're open of some sort. There's also a large crowd of Commander players, Elder Dragon Highlander EDH, which is a variant of Magic the Gathering, and they come in at about, well, they probably start coming in around the same time as the Junior Planeswalkers, and they'll be here all night. And then, of course, Friday nights are Friday Night Magic, and they are always busy. Especially this week, it being the last Friday of the month, we will have people playing in a more expensive $10 standard tournament. There we go. Need to do this guy's tusks. He's almost done. There we go. And this is the one who I was going to make him stand out by giving him a lighter colored mohawk. I need to figure out what color. I don't know what. I don't want it to be just flat white because that'll look like the tusks and that doesn't work. Do I have a lighter gray? So this kobold is graying. He's the commander. Oh God, that's awful. Awful. Come on, paint. Malcolm asks, do we ever do noob-friendly events? I would like to believe that practically any event that we do is noob-friendly. Certainly the Junior Planeswalkers, if you're under 15, are extremely welcoming of new players. We have occasional events that are intended for new Magic players. About once a quarter we do something like that. And in terms of like 40K Warhammer, there are always people looking to teach new folks how to play. In terms of, let's see, D&D, there's a very large D&D crowd on Wednesdays, and we're always welcoming new players, except, this is important, except at the 7 p.m. game in Norton. We would love to be able to accommodate more players, but we are out of room at 7 p.m. during Dungeons and Dragons. Only for 7 p.m. in Norton. There's plenty of time or plenty of room for the 5 p.m. in Norton or the 7 p.m. in Abington on Wednesdays. We also have a 7 p.m. or a, yeah, I believe it's a 7 p.m. in the Saugus location, D&D. But we are always looking for more D&D players because D&D is one of those things that is a lot of fun to teach new folks to play. In terms of board games, the Saugus store has a board game event every Thursday. And Abington has one scheduled on Sundays, but I don't know if anybody has been attending that. Dang it. What I would recommend, if you're looking to learn a new game, is go in the links right underneath this stream. There is a link that says Discord. Click there. Go into the Discord group, and one of the channels in our Discord group is LFG, that's looking for group. So you can post in there and look for people who are looking for new players. All right. These guys are as done as they're going to get. I've done all the detail work I can possibly do. If I keep messing with them, they're just going to get worse. So I'm going to stand them back up on the stands. And call that a day. I do want to do eyeballs for the kobolds. I need to fix my paint. And I have to do something with the stand here. Like, I have to do something with the display, because currently it is not ready to be submitted. But pretty close. Pretty close. I see what you mean about the blue and white being, and the yellow of her hair being fairly Fallout-like for the bard. That does have a sort of Fallout vibe to it. But here is my diorama in its current evolution. There we go. Making progress. I need to do something for the display. I'd like to do the eyeballs. I'd like to fix her hair, because right now it's just a yellow blob. You can see the texture that's in the sculpt, but it's not anywhere near where I want it to be. I have a plan for that, but I'm nervous about it, so I'll experiment. And I've got 5 minutes until the store has to be open. Thank you, Malcolm, for joining me, and anybody else who decided to jump in on the feed. I hope you had some fun watching me paint some figures. Maybe picked up some tricks. I'm not an expert. Like I said, these are very early in my painting career. But I think it's fun to do some stuff on stream and let some folks see what I'm doing. This evening on the Twitch stream, Amanda, my wife, and I are going to be playing the Labyrinth board game. There's a board game based on the movie Labyrinth with David Bowie. And yeah, we're going to play that on stream. So join us at 7:30 if you're not in the store. Otherwise, maybe I'll see you here. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. And I will see you at 7:30 this evening. Bye, everybody.